Imagine this, you're born into a world where the sun never sets on your family's empire, crystal chandeliers in Chelsea townhouses, sprawling country estates like Birch Grove in Sussex, and colonies painted pink on every map from the frozen tundra of Canada to the sun-baked shores of Cape Town. But fast forward a few decades, and you're the unflappable figure at the helm, coolly striking the match that sets it all ablaze. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Harold Macmillan, the silver-spoon statesman, pipe perpetually clenched between his teeth, who gazed upon Britain's vast imperial canvas and murmured, "Time to let it go." Today, we're plunging deep into the life of Supermac, the Prime Minister who alchemized the rigid pomp of empire into the flexible pragmatism of a post-war world order. From aristocratic fox hunts in the misty Yorkshire dales to granting hard-won freedoms across Africa's awakening plains, this is the riveting saga of an aristocrat who didn't merely outlast the empire's twilight, he orchestrated its graceful exit. Hit that like button if you're geared up to dissect history's most dapper empire dismantler, and subscribe for more electrifying yarns of high-stakes power plays and unforeseen plot twists. Let's dive right in. Picture 1894, fog-shrouded London streets alive with the clip-clop of horse-drawn hansom cabs, gas lamps flickering like hesitant stars. On February 10th, in the genteel enclave of Chelsea, Harold Macmillan makes his entrance, not in some crumbling Gothic manner, but into a household that's a heady blend of literary ink and quiet influence. His father, Maurice Crawford Macmillan, is the co-founder of the venerable Macmillan Publishing Empire, a firm that churned out timeless tomes from Charles Dickens's serialized novels to Charles Darwin's earth-shaking theories on evolution. His mother, Nellie Artie Tarleton, a fiery, sharp-tongued American transplant from the bluegrass hills of Kentucky, looms large as the family's driving force, instilling in young Harold a relentless ambition laced with transatlantic grit, the kind that could charm a southern drawl into a British drawl without missing a beat. No slouch in the schoolroom, Harold's early years are a whirlwind of supervised excellence. First, the preparatory rigor of Summerfield School in Oxford in 1903, then the hallowed halls of Eton College from 1906, where he navigates the cutthroat world of faggying and football fields, though a bout of pneumonia briefly sidelines him during his first term. He rebounds to Balliol College, Oxford, immersing himself in classics and philosophy, only for the guns of August 1914 to shatter the idol. World War I erupts, and at 20, Harold enlists with the elite Grenadier Guards, trading tweed jackets for khaki. This is no gentleman's jaunt, it's a meat grinder. In September 1915 at the Battle of Loos, shrapnel tears through his hand, leaving him bandaged and brooding. Then comes the Somme in July 1916, a grenade detonates prematurely, riddling his knee with fragments. He endures 14 grueling operations over 2 years in Edinburgh's military hospitals, emerging with a lifelong limp, chronic pain, and a habit of reciting Aeschylus's ancient Greek tragedies aloud in the muck of no man's land to steady shattered nerves. Heroic? Undeniably, with a military cross pinned to his chest. Traumatized? Profoundly, forging a man who knew the fragility of empires built on bayonets. Fast forward to the roaring 20s haze of jazz and jazz-age excess. In April 1920, he weds Lady Dorothy Evelyn Cavendish, the vivacious daughter of the 9th Duke of Devonshire. Think rolling Chatsworth House estates, thoroughbred horses, and a pedigree that traces back to William the Conqueror. It's a union sealed in aristocratic gold, complete with society weddings at the Guards' Chapel and honeymoons in the Highlands. Yet shadows creep in early. By late 1929, Dorothy embarks on a torrid, decades-long affair with the roguish Conservative MP Robert Boothby, later Lord Boothby, a bon vivant with a penchant for fast cars, faster women, and whispered Cray twins connections. Their daughter Sarah, born in 1930, carries Boothby's blood but Macmillan's name and unwavering devotion. Harold, ever the stoic cuckold, turns a blind eye for the sake of family honor and political optics, confiding only in closest confidants that the wounds of war pale beside those of the heart. But Harold? He's scheming on a grander scale, channeling personal turmoil into public fire. Elected MP for the hardscrabble, shipyard-shadowed Stockton-on-Tees in 1924, a far cry from Mayfair salons, he champions the forgotten working classes, railing against unemployment and inequality in fiery common speeches that brand him a Tory rebel among his blue-blooded peers. Question for you: could a silver-spoon scion, scarred by shells and silenced by scandal, truly upend the old order? Harold was on the cusp, and the inferno of World War II would forge his answer in fire. Fast forward to the Blitz's wailing sirens and the thunder of doodlebugs over London. Macmillan's no armchair general. He dons uniform once more as a liaison officer, masterminding Allied logistics in North Africa's scorching sands like a patrician Patton, forging an unlikely cigar-fueled camaraderie with Dwight D. Eisenhower that hints at the transatlantic alliances to come. Victory in 1945 leaves Britain a skeletal shadow, cities gutted, families huddled in Anderson shelters turned prefabs. Enter 1951, Churchill summons Harold as Minister of Housing and Local Government, tasking him with resurrecting the nation's hearths. Amid ration books and rubble, he unleashes a Herculean drive, smashing through red tape to erect 300,000 sturdy new homes annually by 1953, homes for heroes reborn as a concrete crusade, with prefabs giving way to semis boasting indoor plumbing and victory gardens. By 1954, he's pivoted to Minister of Defense, streamlining a bloated military post-national service, then Foreign Secretary under the faltering Anthony Eden, whose health frays like old rope. But Harold's no sycophant. Back in the 1930s, he defied Tory appeasers, earning the Iron Duke's grudging respect with pamphlets decrying Munich as moral collapse. Now, 1956 dawns with the Suez Crisis, a geopolitical powder keg. Egypt's charismatic Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalizes the Suez Canal, Britain's arterial vein for oil and empire. Eden, haunted by Neville Chamberlain's ghost, bays for invasion. Harold, as Chancellor of the Exchequer, initially eggs it on as a hawk in dove's feathers, cabling feverishly for a covert tripartite pact with France and Israel to seize the waterway under the flimsiest pretext. Paratroopers drop into Port Said on November 5 amid cheers from London crowds, only for the backlash to erupt like Vesuvius. President Eisenhower, incensed by the colonial whiff, slams a credit freeze on sterling, Arab oil embargoes choke refineries, the pound plummets 30% in a fortnight, sparking a run on reserves that threatens bankruptcy. Harold, poring over treasury ledgers by lamplight, pivots to prophet of peril, murmuring to Eden, "This isn't just a reverse, it's economic Ragnarok, we're staring into the abyss." Britain folds in humiliation, troops withdrawn by Christmas. Eden, broken in body and spirit, resigns in January 1957, felled by surgical complications from chain-smoking stress. Into the fray steps our aristocrat, pipe aglow, intoning to a jittery cabinet, "Above all, gentlemen, let us have calm." Supermac ascends, the unflappable fixer. Suez wasn't mere fiasco, it was empire's death knell, exposing Britain's vassalage to Washington. Harold grasped it viscerally, and braced to hawk renewal to a shell-shocked populace. But could his vision of abundance eclipse the ashes? January 10, 1957, Harold Macmillan saunters into number 10 Downing Street as if reclaiming a family fiefdom. After all, his publisher's backlist likely stocked its shelves. Britain hums with tentative thaw, wages climb 5% yearly, unemployment dips below 2%, factories belch forth washing machines and wireless sets. In a sun-dappled Bedford field on July 20, 1957, he seals his era with a zinger to a rapt crowd of workers. "Let us be frank about this great matter of taxation. Most of our people have never had it so good, though the press cheekily twists it to the more punchy, you've never had it so good, capturing the zeitgeist of a nation rediscovering the high street." Cue the consumer supernova. By 1960, 9 in 10 households boast a telly tuned to Coronation Street. Ford Anglias clogged the new M1 motorway. Holidays flocked to Butlin's camps under candy-striped flags. Harold's the maestro, wielding Keynesian deficit spending like a conductor's baton, pumping public works, subsidizing exports, courting corporatist pacts with unions and bosses to grease the wheels of growth. Yet he's no dove on deterrence. In December 1962's Nassau summit, he haggles with a wary JFK over nukes, securing the Polaris submarine-launched missiles in a skybolt swap that cements Britain's independent deterrent amid the missile gap's chill. The welfare net widens too, one nation Toryism at its zenith, national insurance hikes fund plush pensions, the NHS swells with polyclinics, grammar schools multiply under the Butler Act's echo. He dubs it, the middle way, in his 1938 tome, a velvet-gloved capitalism blending markets with mercy, averting the red spectre of socialism. But oh, the wit! Probed on premiership's perils, he drawls to the ghosts of Attlee's aides, events, dear boy, events, a line apocryphal yet immortal, as Cuba's 1962 brinkmanship sees him shuttle diplomat between Kennedy and Khrushchev, while a Berlin Wall jaunt in 1961 has him tipping his Hamburg to barbed wire sentries with wry detachment. This patrician polymath oozes gravitas, his Oxford drawl disarming foes like a well-aged port. Yet beneath the Seville row sheen, tempests brew, stop-go, fiscal lurches, boom-bust budgets to tame inflation, sparked murmurs of mismanagement by 1961, as higher purchase debts balloon and the balance of payments wobbles. Scandals simmer like slow poison, and the empire? It's drafting its own Emancipation Proclamation. Harold stands poised to ink it with imperial flourish. Here's the pulsating core of our chronicle, the aristocrat who torched the empire he inherited. Harold imbibed Raj romances and Rhodesian rifles at his grandfather's knee, Britain's self-anointed, civilizing force, exporting steam engines and stiff collars to backward realms. But by 1960, the chessboard's flipped, Ghana's flag rises in 1957 under Nkrumah's fiery leadership, Nigeria's federation fractures free in 1960, colonial bastions buckle beneath tidal waves of Pan-African nationalism, proxy scrums in the Cold War's shadow, and Britain's post-Suez coffers, drain drier than the Kalahari. Harold's just wrapped a whirlwind tour of the continent, Ghana's cocoa groves, Nigeria's bustling Lagos ports, Kenya's thornbush Mau Mau scars, absorbing the inexorable pulse of self-rule. On February 3, 1960, in Cape Town's marbled parliament, clad in white tie and tails against the summer swelter, he unleashes a rhetorical thunderbolt to an all-white assembly of Afrikaner nationalists. The wind of change is blowing through this continent. Whether we like it or not, this growth of national consciousness is a political fact. We must all accept it as a fact, and our policies must take account of it. It's no offhand aside, this 45-minute oration weaves Cold War realpolitik, warning of Soviet inroads if the West clings to outdated dominion, with a velvet-veiled indictment of apartheid's racial iron curtain, praising multiracial harmony in the Commonwealth as the path forward. Prime Minister Hendrik Verwoerd's delegation shifts uncomfortably, their bass-capped worldview cracked. Back in Pretoria, it ignites fury, hastening South Africa's 1961 bolt from the Commonwealth fold. Stateside and in Whitehall, it's hailed as statesmanship, in truth, it's empire's requiem mass. Harold turbocharges the unspooling. By 1963, 17 African jewels, Kenya's savannas under Kenyatta, Uganda's lakesides with Obote, Tanganyika's coasts fused with Zanzibar into Tanzania, unfurl independence flags as redcoats pack crates and steam home. Diehards decry it as craven scuttle, Harold recasts it as Phoenix rebirth, nurturing the Commonwealth as a voluntary family of nations, 60 strong by his exit, trading khaki for khadi in diplomatic salons. No more bleeding garrisons in the bush or taxpayer black holes, instead, preferential tariffs, BBC World Service soft power, and a daring bid for Europe's economic community, thwarted by de Gaulle's snarling "non" in 1963, but seeding seeds for later harvests. Betrayal to the Balfour Declaration Brigade? Or brilliant realignment, averting bloodier ruptures like Algeria's carnage? Harold morphs from imperial romantic to cold-eyed realist, his limp a metaphor for the hobble of history. But even Superman totter, what hubris-fueled gale would gust him from the heights? 1962 unfurls like a Greek tragedy, the Night of the Long Knives on July 13, when Harold, besieged by vassal spy ring leaks and economic jitters, wields the axe on 7 cabinet heavyweights, Selwyn Lloyd's phone yanked mid-dial at 2 a.m., a bloodbath that thins his ranks but fattens foes' whispers of dithering dotage. Brutal boardroom purge? It rebounds like a boomerang, eroding morale. Then detonates the Profumo Affair, summer 1963's tabloid Armageddon, War Secretary John Profumo beds sultry showgirl Christine Keeler, who simultaneously dallies with Soviet naval attaché Yevgeny Ivanov. Security breach meets bedroom farce, with poolside romps at Cliveden mingling ministers and models. Profumo perjures Parliament with denials in March, only to confess in June amid MI5 dossiers and Keeler's kiss and tell. He quits in disgrace, but the rot festers, tainting Macmillan's establishment with sleaze and suspicion. Harold's prostate cancer, diagnosed secretly in 1962, zapping his vigor with radiation rounds, compounds the chaos. By October 18, 1963, he tenders tear-streaked resignation to the Queen, rasping, "There is no theme, just a series of incidents," a valediction laced with bitter irony, as Poles crater and Labour scents blood. He withdraws to Birch Grove's book-lined solace, penning elegiac memoirs like Winds of Change, 1966, ennobled as Earl of Stockton in 1984. Death claims him December 29, 1986, at 92, his parting quip to Thatcher, "My dear, with your government, it was all events." Legacy? A mosaic of gold and grit, the Golden Age boom minted middle-class millions, yet stop-go spasms sowed Sterling's woes. Profumo's purple patch scarred the Tories, paving Labour's 1964 triumph. Decolonization? Once pilloried as precipitate, now lauded as prophetic, sidestepping Rhodesia's thorns or Aden's agonies, his wind gusting a multipolar world where Britain pivots from dominions to Davos deals. In Brexit's fractured mirror, modern sages, from Liverpool's rhetoricians to Washington's think tanks, hail him as the bridge builder par excellence, embodying his maxim, "Power is dangerous unless you have humility, and a touch of humor." Empires crumble, but Macmillan's grace? It endures, a tweed-clad talisman for turbulent times. So, there you have it, the aristocrat who bartered imperial tiaras for the trinkets of transformation. What's your verdict, visionary savior or scandal-scuffed has-been? Spill in the comments, did Harold salvage Britain's soul from Suez's sinkhole, or merely cushion the imperial tumble? If this epic unpack left you riveted, thunder that like button, beam it to a timeline-scrolling history hound, and subscribe for unvarnished plunges into yesteryear's intrigues. Next, Churchill's rakish underbelly, unbuttoned and unbowed. Cheers, you empire unravelers. Until next time.